Hi, this is Ed Parcaut, your host of Inner Edison. What I'd like for you to take away from today's show is our greatest growth comes from our greatest failures. Today's guest is Quan, Huynh, and let's welcome him and get to know his story. How bad was I on your name there, Quan?
No, you pronounced it pretty good.
90% maybe, 85?
95,
All
95.
right, I appreciate
Quinn.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I you know, I'm not I'm a redneck. What do you want? You're laughing. It's the truth. Anyway, I looked into your story a little bit. You came from Steve Sims, and a lot of my guests do. And so let's talk about where you grew up, how you got involved, and how you got into prison. So let's go that route first, and then we'll get into the good stuff.
Okay. I grew up in Provo, Utah. We came here to the United States after we lost our country, so I was a toddler. And when my father decided to settle in Utah because my mom had never seen snow before. My father was involved in with the South Vietnamese army, so he had come to the United States and he knew kind of the lay of the land. So when we lost the country, my mom never saw snow. My father decides to settle somewhere where there was snow in Provo, Utah. So we had some sponsors that took us in, and that's where I grew up.
Wow, Provo, Utah, of all places. All right, and so how was school? How did you, I know your story, so why don't you explain your story, your background, how you got into prison, and then we'll go from
Okay, well, of course, Utah, it was a beautiful place for me growing up, but I did experience what I do know now to be racism. And those were the moments that stuck out to me. I remember growing up thinking, like, why don't I fit in? Why can't I look normal like the other kids? Because I just wanted to look normal and thinking like, okay, what normal was what I saw. I didn't see anyone else that looked like me or my family, so that's where I felt a little off growing up. Um, and of course, in particular, one incident of racism that really stuck out to me was when my younger brother and I were playing with our GI Joes in the streams one day, and some older kids told us, get out of here, get out of our country, go back to your country, whatever. And we're throwing rocks down at us, and us being kids, I think I was like 8, my brother was 6, told them come and make us because they seemed so far away. These kids jumped the fence, ran down, and chased us down. I dropped some of my GI Joes, and my younger brother um, stopped to pick them up and face like these older kids, and they punched him. He fell to the ground, and they began putting dirt in his mouth, and I stood there not doing anything and just crying. And then when we went home, my father found out what happened. My father just told me, how'd you let this happen to your younger brother? You're supposed to protect your family at all costs. And of course, my father never spoke about it again. But I think in my mind that made it even worse because I thought, like, I let my family down, I let my brother down, and it was that I grew up with this chip on my shoulder that I always had to protect my brother, protect my family, or protect anything to do with our name or our culture, things like that. My father gets diagnosed with leukemia where around that same year we moved out here to California when I was about 10, and he passes away when I was 13. And it was a little bit after that my brother and I started running around on the streets.
Quan.
Uh,
I,
yeah.
I understand my dad. I lost my dad at 12, so I understand how that can make a big difference in your life when you don't
Yeah.
have that father figure there to help you. I was wondering how where were you in California?
Southern California
Where?
in the Huntington Beach, Westminster
Okay.
area. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in San Diego for almost 18 years before I moved back up to Northern California. So I ran, I mean, all over LA, Orange County, everywhere I lived. So in San Diego County. So I kind of know where you're at. So you moved there when you said 10, right?
Yes, when I was
Okay.
10.
And then how did you still have did you see the racism there or as much as you did in Utah?
Well, I think I remember coming out here to California, and this is the first time going to school with Hispanics and African Americans and other Asians and even Vietnamese. But I remember And as kids, it's funny when I look back now. Uh, I I I only held on to like these moments when I look back. I'm sure there were moments every day where I fit in and I felt like I fit in with a bunch of other kids, but it's just a few moments of being teased or something, somebody said something, and I hold on to that as this is what my life is. And I remember some Vietnamese kids teasing me because I couldn't speak Vietnamese well. They called me whitewashed. So I just suddenly, this is reinforced. I didn't fit in Utah. I didn't fit in Cali. I just don't fit in, or there's something wrong with me. So all of this tied in together. And then, of course, with my father's death and me praying for him to stay alive, and then him passing away, I think that further compounded everything, thinking, yep, this is really proof that I don't fit in and there's something wrong with me, and even God doesn't even love me. I just really believed this as a kid.
Now, is that what gets most people to go towards gangs? That feeling of not belonging, that they now go look for that belonging in certain things?
Well, I would say for me personally, that's what I would say it was. Like that's what the gang fulfilled for me when I was involved with the gang. For me, it just felt like I am exactly where I am supposed to be. I feel like I fit in. This is my family. These are people that just accept me and they don't judge me, and these are the only ones that understand me.
So when did you get into the gangs? What age?
Well, we started. I mean, it wasn't an official gang, but we started already running around the streets. By the time, yeah, like in our high school years, but we weren't like a gang, but it wasn't like it was just like kids up to no good, little misfits running on the streets, and then suddenly it just evolves and becomes more and more sophisticated and more criminally sophisticated, and then which ends up, or my first arrest came at 17. We It was for the attempted murder of some skinhead kids. There were some skinhead kids that went to the nearby continuation school. With my brother and I, and they had called and threatened my mom and my sister or something. They called our house and said they were going to kill us and said all this racial stuff. And one of my friends, he had a gun, so my brother and my friends ended up finding where the house was, and they went over there. And one of my friends ran inside and shot three people. Fortunately, they all survived. We had never shot a gun before. I only seen one of my friends pull it out, but my friend did pull the gun out and shoot somebody that day. I was arrested, even though I wasn't there. They said I was part of the conspiracy because they stopped at my work beforehand, and they talked about picking me up at 10 o'clock, but they never picked me up. They went and found the house and they did the shooting. So I remember going into juvenile hall with this angry and this chip on my shoulder saying I just got screwed by the American justice system, and I should have never been arrested. And of course, everybody around me reinforced that thinking too. Never taking any sense of responsibility for myself at that moment.
And then what was the next event that actually got you?
Yeah, so then it was after that where it just began to spiral. Like all the people that I met inside juvenile hall is, the juvenile halls here in California are split up by race, so you associate with people of your own race, and um, that's who I associated with was other Vietnamese kids that were arrested. These later became my close friends. Once I came home about 2 years after that, and those are the same group of guys which basically formed a core group of what later on became our gang.
So
And so
so you actually were put into juvenile hall and then were found guilty of the conspiracy. Is that what is that what
I pled guilty to a conspiracy to commit a crime. But by the time I had already been in like close to 2 years, and they said just take this 7 years, and then you could get out early. So I signed a deal. Came home. I did get out early, but then by that time I'm a convicted felon. Um, Really felt out of place for sure now, because nobody had understood my journey up to that point. And so I, of course, on one hand, try to do what I could, try to find a work, try to re-enroll in college. And that was good. But then there was another part of me that just had felt pulled to the gang, and these are people that understood me, and these are people that I can associate with and identify with.
All right, so now then more and more things happen, and then the last event that got you in the prison, and let's talk about your journey through prison and how you came out and what you do.
Yeah, so it was from there it was like a repeated pattern of going in and out for parole violations, like some gun violations. I had gang violations, and ultimately committed a murder in 1999. I shot and killed a man named Min Nguyen, and tried to kill his three friends that were in the car with him too. It was after some of my friends got in a fight with them at a nightclub, um, and I came out. When I came out, I wasn't even involved in the fight, but when I found out that some of my friends got in a fight, I had been turned down for a management position at my work a few weeks earlier, and when I got turned down, I before that, when I got the interview, I thought, okay, my life is going to go right for once. Things are going to turn out right for me. And when the when the when they came back and they said, we're sorry, because the interviews at that place were done on personality. It wasn't on like a regular interview. It's like, what do you think about when you drive home? So it's all personality based. It was for the Gallup organization, and so when they came back, the words they told me was, we're sorry, but you are not a fit. And that's just the words they used. But for me, when I heard you are not a fit, I think it was just more that core part of me. Yeah, I don't fit in, and you don't fit. So I stuffed those feelings into a corner. Um, didn't talk about it, didn't share with anybody. And when I found out my friends got into that fight, I felt, here's my opportunity to just take out everything that's going on inside of me onto somebody, and ended up shooting and killing one man and injuring a couple others. I was arrested.
Quan,
Oh, go ahead.
would you say that you were so to protect them because of what your dad told you?
I think part of it, but I think it just got reinforced over the years, just of everything else. Like, of course, that little seed is there, and then, of course, it gets distorted where it's growing off into a whole another way of looking. Oh, this is how I protect family now, because this is my family.
Right. I mean, because I think if your story, I mean, that's the one thing about us as dads, we have to be careful what we tell our kids, because sometimes what you mean to tell them doesn't always come across, and then they take it, and then, like you said, it's a little seed, but then it grows and grows, and that's what my dad told me. He's not here anymore, so that's what I must do, right?
Yeah.
So I was just trying to see if that was connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it is. It was a few months after that I was arrested after an investigation. They tried me for first they tried me for the death penalty. Um, I was ultimately convicted of second-degree murder because by that time I had got rid of evidence and lied on the stand and coached witnesses. So I received a 15-year to life sentence, which in the state of California at that time was the same thing as a death sentence, because they had not paroled anybody with a life sentence since 1977 by that time. So I went into prison thinking, okay, I have a life sentence. I'm going to die in here, and the only chances is if my appeal goes through. But I think I'm going to die, so I'm just going to live the way I want, and that's basically the way I lived for about 10 years of my sentence. We get the first 10 years of my sentence, 10, 12 years.
What changed?
Well, several things. I've always been a bookworm, so even during my prison time, I've been known to have like 4 or 5 books in my bunk area to read them simultaneously. I jump from one book to another, and I had this habit of, let's say if I like a certain author or a certain genre, I just read all about it, or a certain topic. And also, so it's like, I think by that time I did go down one rabbit trail to another, and around that time I stumbled and became fascinated with stories of the saints, particularly stories about saints that had failed in their lives but then had went on to create legacies and which drew me in. I was like, oh wow, like look how these people are living. So I was fascinated with them. Also around the same time, I think that's when I first saw the pictures of my little niece. It's my younger brother's daughter, and just seeing her took me back to childhood because she looked just like my brother, but just a baby girl version of my brother. So I began asking myself questions like, how did my life end up like this? Am I supposed to die in here? Is this it for me? And of course, during the time, it's those books of saints and everything, and I go down these rabbit trails of books on um, meditation and spirituality, and there was this theme of like people um, fascinated with people like were uh, uh, that became monks and everything like that. So it was just one day on the prison yard, I stood there and then I just asked myself like, why does this place, prison, have to be punishment? Why can't this be a place for me to remake myself, to become a better person, even if I'm supposed to die in here? And the answer came back. I can and I could. And just that small subtle shift in my thinking, it made all the difference in the world. The sun was coming up over those hills. I could feel the warmth from it, and in the little blades of grass I could see the individual drops of dew. And up above me in the razor wire, uh, I heard a sparrow chirping. And I tell everyone that sparrow had probably been chirping my whole prison term. I never heard it, but that day I heard it. And from that day on, prison was no longer this cold, harsh, ugly place. It began to be a place where I felt this is where I'm on a journey. I could see other men on their journey, some of them much further along, and some of them perhaps not even awakened, but we're all on a journey here. And that's just how I began to approach prison um, each day. Of course, by that time, then I realized, okay, I think I should check in with a therapist to talk about my father's death and everything. So, 25 odd years later is when I began grieving my father's death for once and being able to talk about it. And then, of course, being the bookworm, I become fascinated with the grief and loss process. So I read all about it. And then I noticed all around me the grief and loss process. Like many men were unable to grieve and many men were unable to mourn, whether it's losing loved ones, whether their wives or partners leaving them, whether it's their kids moving on, whether it's them being uprooted and transferred from one prison to another so they have to leave behind all their friends, or going to the board multiple times and being denied, uh, uh, come back in 5 years, come back in 10 years. So I just saw it repeated. So I put together a syllabus, submitted it to the prison psychologist. He loved it, and we were able to create the prison's first ever grief and loss group. And it was inside there where I saw men like sharing openly and healing, and then that's where suddenly I felt alive for once. Like, oh my goodness, I think I found where I could find some fulfillment and some meaning. And so I became fascinated with um, the self-help process, and began reading books on self-help and communicating effectively and group dynamics and things like that. So I just go down these rabbit trails, then I get involved with other groups and create other self-help groups, and it all just began to snowball and tie in together. And suddenly I'm inside prison, realizing, you know what? I'm here in some forgotten corner of the world that nobody knows about, but yet it's in this little area that I can make an impact. It's in this little area that I can help those around me. And it's in this little area that, yeah, I'm in prison, but I feel free, and I feel like I am living for once. And I feel like, I have meaning in my life for once. And this is in the midst of my life sentence.
And how did you, because you're in a life sentence, right? And so how did you get paroled? After what year did you get paroled?
I was paroled November of 2015. It was my second board hearing. I went to the pro board, spoke about, like, I had shared with them openly that I did do the shooting, that I lied at trial, um, share with them my journey, my self-understanding, and then spoke about like things I'm up to, what I'm up to creating. And it was in that hearing where the commissioner told me, you know what, we feel that you are no longer a threat to society,
Hmm.
or you're a danger to society, something like that. And that's when they paroled me. So that's
Wow.
November 2015.
And it's amazing that you came to all this in prison, right? You finally dealt with the things that you needed to deal with, right? Because as kids, we don't always know how to grieve our parents passing, and we put that anger or other stuff into other things. And I can see that. It's now I was on your website and I noticed you have your Sparrow and the Razor Wire book. Is that out?
Yes, it published September of last year. It's
How's
written
it?
for men that are doing long or life-term sentences, and in it, I share with them how did I come to my own sense of freedom years before I parole, and we've been able to get uh, close to about 2,800 books in the prison across the United States. So I recently they gave me permission to send it to every single prison law library in the state of California. So it was like reaching out, and repeated emails, and suddenly overnight I was able to get my book into every prison in the state of California. So now it's how do I do this for the rest of the United States?
Is that a long process? Because I'm not aware.
Yeah, it is a long process to just get the books inside. I mean, it's part of it is okay because I had some generous donors purchase some for donation, and then I had some amazing people do fundraisers to get enough books, and then from there it's getting the books, the funds to purchase the books, and then reaching out to individual prisons. They have what are called CRMs, is the community resource managers that have to approve it sometimes, or the librarians have to approve it and they have to get it in. They have to be paperback books, so that's why my prints were mostly in paperback, and it's just getting them in.
So what are you doing now that you've been out since 2015, and you wrote a book just, last year, or I guess you should published it. What are you doing now? I mean, what's
I work at DeFi Ventures. It's a nonprofit that helps men and women with criminal histories transform their lives through the journey of entrepreneurship. I work as a senior program manager for our entrepreneurship program. So it's to help the men and women that are now home pursue their entrepreneurial dreams if that's where they want to go. I'm also a business owner. I created my first company 6 months after. It's a commercial cleaning company. 6 employees, 4 of them formerly incarcerated. My best workers by far. So that's what I'm doing. And then, of course, trying to get more of my books into prison.
right? Um, how do you help business owners hire convicted, felons and other stuff? Because there is a stigma there that, I'm sure you thought that that's what the issue was when you were trying to go for that management, when it had to do just with personality traits, which are real big. And I look at personality traits and what I do. I own a mortgage company, and where everybody fits and certain things. Yes, you can change certain things, but for most of the time, what makes you happy is basically what they're looking for personality traits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
How would you help business owners? Because you just said 4 of your best workers were former felons, right, or
Yes.
incarcerated, I should say. So,
So at DeFi, we actually get to do workshops on fair chance hiring, and talking about this stigma, talking about the fear. I mean, it's yes, it might be uncomfortable, it might be fear, but it's like we ask them, do you believe in second chances? And most people will say yes, but then okay, do you believe in second chances for someone that committed a violent crime? And it's always, oh no, there's this, there's that, and there's we have to challenge some of their preconceived notions about what it means to be formerly incarcerated. So I think that's also part of the work I do is um, speaking openly about my past, and helping to hopefully in some way start to change the narrative of what people think about for people that were incarcerated. Because there's some amazing hustlers and entrepreneurs that I've met in there. I mean, I've had an opportunity to meet some amazing entrepreneurs and everything since I've been home. I think that's why, like, I mean, you said, Steve Sims, and he's gone into prison with us, and he's gone multiple times, and he does his group trips. I met some amazing entrepreneurs that are Steve's friends, but I also met some amazing entrepreneurs that are inside that could sit at the same table as a lot of Steve's friends too.
And I just think it has to do with opportunity, giving people the opportunity to be able to grow in any aspect that they want to. I want to go, define when you're talking about, because I know that, like you just said, Steve Sims asked us all, hey, go to prison with me. And then you help, you sit down with and listen to people and their different business ideas, right? Is basically what they do.
Yeah, you would serve as a coaches or a judge for the graduation because we judge it Shark Tank style, and their graduation culminates in them pitching a business. Um, what I found on the feedback for a lot of people that have gone into prison is they think, okay, we're going to go in, we're going to help these people that are incarcerated, and we're going to bring the knowledge. But I think a lot of times people that go in end up saying they get more out of going in than they think they were able to give. So.
And I think a lot of the times that, people who go to prison, it's because of their environment that they grew up in. And if you change people's environments, people make mistakes. I've made multiple mistakes through my life. There was time where I was in the Navy or whatever that I could have, there's certain things you do that you can get incarcerated for. I mean, first of all, the Navy is a form of incarceration, but let's not go there. But I'm just saying there's things that you can do that you make a mistake that certain things can, be there for the rest of your life. There's nothing else you can do. And it's amazing that you took a life 15 there to life. It was 15 to life or
15 right? Years to life.
Yeah. But like you said, at that time, that meant pretty much you were staying in, that you went from that to, that one day from reading books and seeing that there is opportunity for somebody who made a mistake to grow and move on and see. And this is what I'm trying to get to for everybody, and why I wanted you on the show is because we all make mistakes. We have to learn from them and keep moving on and not just stay stuck there. We have to see how we can get around certain things. And amazing story, Quan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on this too.
No problem. I mean, it's when we kind of quickly talked a little bit, when you asked me if I want, and you have a great story, and because not everybody has what you live through, and a lot of us have our childhood. All of our childhood can control what we do for the rest of our life. We have to deal with that before we can move forward. For most people, because not everybody, nobody has the perfect childhood. So.
Yeah, nobody does. I don't think there is a perfect childhood, right?
Right. Well, just if you lie about it. I had a perfect childhood. Yeah. But, Quan, anything else you want to add before we go?
No.
How about this? I got a question for you. In your business, that you started, right? Because the cleaning. Is there anything that you wish you would have known before you started that business? A little bit more, because as you create a business, you're like, wow, I didn't know that, or this or that. Is there anything that you could give advice to people to, hey, this is what I wish I would have known before I started this business? Or you could just say, what was there a mistake along the way that you wish you would have known?
I made a million mistakes along the way. So, and it's just learning from. I think I wish I would have known that how important it is to bring on the right team members. I think I learned that early on.
And it's still hard. I mean, you constantly my business is very stressful, right? Because people cannot get in their home, this kind of stuff. And so it takes a toll on a lot of people that they take the job home with them. It's like, you can't, or I can, because I own the business, but you as an employee just shouldn't, don't even think about it. Once you leave the office, you shouldn't think about it. My wife was a nurse. They don't think about it after they leave work. So I try to instill that in my employees. Don't leave. Do not give people your phone numbers. You work for me. You're not a loan officer. So, but yeah, it's really hard to get the right team. And then also what I find, and you're probably going to say this, it's very, first of all, you were in prison, but I'm saying it's lonely at the top. When you start a business, you start creating things, there's not a lot of people around that do the same thing. So it's important to have the mentors, the coaches, the cornermans, whatever you want to call it, in around you. Do you have that for yourself, or have you noticed that yourself?
I do notice that. It's because one of my friends pointed it out, because I went to see some of my friends up in the Bay Area, and these were friends that were incarcerated with me. But even talking to them, I felt disconnected. Like they were telling me, like, "Oh, you're so successful, you're so this. And I didn't feel like that. I felt like, man, um, I didn't feel like I was deserving of them to say that. I go, wait, we were all locked up together. But then my friend just said, yeah, it's because, but look what you have done. And that's where you're feeling this disconnect with them. Because there was, everything was just about me and what I created. And I couldn't really talk to them. They didn't have, I guess what it was, I didn't have an opportunity to find out more about what they had been up to, because everything, they were just only wanting to ask me, and I felt that made me feel uncomfortable.
And that's okay. You gotta, that just means you moved on and you grew and you did more, and we can only help our, the people around as much as they want to be helped. So yeah, but I totally understand. I mean, even so that, and you're talking about in prison, but just in general life, if you go back to the people you knew in high school, or if you knew in college, a lot of times there's only 1% of all those people are doing amazing. The rest of them are just doing normal,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Quan, it was really nice having you on today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
No, thank you so much for having me. So,
like I
I
said,
mean, if any of your listeners want to either get involved with DeFi, go to prison with us, they go right to our website at defiventures.org. And if they want to help me get more of my books into prison, they could go right to my website. They go quanxwin.com or sparrowintherazorwire.com. It's probably easier to find.
So on your website, is there a place that you can donate? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there is a place. They just put donate, and it could help me support the mission of getting more books.
So how many? All right. So to get a book into prison, how many books what is the cost to get, say, 10 books into prison?
Well,
there's got to be a cost, like, you know what I mean? Have you, or if you give $20, that gives us so many, or if you give 100, that gives so many.
So usually people are purchasing one here, two there to donate, and I usually just compile it into a list. So when the prisons let me know, I send those books off. That's how I've been doing it. Some of the fundraisers, I've been matching it. So let's say, I think the last fundraiser, they raised close to 400 and something books, no, 500 something books. So I said I'll match the other half. So we ended up overnight saying, okay, we're gonna ship off 1,000 books. And I started doing outreach to prisons. Hey, I have enough to send out 1,000 books to prison. And then they get approve it, and then like one prison says, okay, we could take 50, and I can send 50 to them, and then another 40 over here, another 100 over there. That's just how it usually works. I don't have a great process yet. I'm figuring that part out.
That's all right. No pressure. I was not trying to. I just wanted to. So basically, a lot of prisons will take 40 and 50 books. That was my other question. How many books does prison take?
Yeah, some prisons will take up to that many. Some will take like only 5 or 10. I mean, like 5 or 10 getting it into a library, that's plenty. Because I know prisoners, they do pass it along. I mean, I've been getting some amazing mail back from people that are incarcerated. Like I recently got one from a woman that said like she doesn't know how the book came to her. It was slid under her door. She ended up reading it overnight, was crying, was laughing, and then she has a line of women ready to read it, and the copies in the library are all gone, and people are just asking for it. So hearing things like that, I go, okay, this is what I wanted to do when I was writing. I remember during the writing process when I wanted to like, okay, I'll submit my manuscript, but part of me is like, I don't want this to just be to say that I wrote a book. I want this to be something relevant for people that are incarcerated 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where they can refer back, hey, this book helped me in some way. That's the way I wanted to write it. So it's encouraging to get the mail for people to say that they are looking for it. And it was the same thing on Facebook. The mother of somebody that was incarcerated reached out to me and told me the same thing, that her son read my book and loved it, and that a bunch of his friends are also reading it, and they can't find copies of it. They said like there were 15 copies in the library and everybody checked it out. So it's cool to hear that.
Yeah, it must make you feel good to help out like that.
Yeah, it does. Especially when I go back into prison, and like during my writing process, there was a lot of times when I went back in, and the men find out that I'm a former lifer, so they're asking me a bunch of questions, and like within 5-10 minutes, I go, oh, I could help this guy. If I was on the yard, I could help this guy prepare for the parole board. but I'm not there. So that's what continued to give me the energy and the fuel to continue my writing process when I came home. It's always like, okay, this is for the guys that I left behind. These are the guys inside, and this is how I can help them.
Well, way to turn your life around and helping other people. I find that a lot of us, that's what we do for, what we enjoy doing is helping people. So you should be happy they turned you down for management.
Yeah, I look back.
It started you on this journey, man.
I would have been a terrible manager.
No, it started you on your journey.
Harsh and everything, yeah.
That started you on your journey to where you are now to help people. So, and again, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today on Inner Edison. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and what we learned from our guest's journey. Please like, share, and subscribe. And again, thank you so much for listening. Quan, thank you so much for being here today.